District didn't exclude the child from education altogether, which is good. They did get a threat assessment team, which is good. They did try to formalize some safety plans, and likely were doing room clears and all sorts of things that take kind of a big communication plan in order for everyone to know what to do. This must have been pretty scary for the teacher and the other students. I bet they had families calling.
Welcome to Spedsplaining, where special education gets decoded one case at a time. I'm Stefan, a former classroom teacher and current instructional coach, and I'm joined by three brilliant minds in special education, Darcy, Anna, and Leanne. Each week, they take real stories, often from right here in Washington, and break them down into plain language. We use these stories as a launch pad to explore the wild, wonderful, and sometimes frustrating world of general and special education. Whether you're an educator, parent, advocate, or just curious about how the system really works, we've got you. Let's dive in.
Okay, my case is about a little kindergartner, and I love little kindergartners, right? Like some of them never been to school before, and they just like don't know the rules, and they're super wiggly, and that's just the way kindergartners are nowadays, I think. So this little person was 6 years old. They were in a gen ed class at the start of the school year. They came in with a diagnosis of ADHD, conduct disorder, and generalized anxiety. And so they were qualified.
Wow, that's a lot for 6 years old.
I know, right? Like what's going on? Like this feels like a lot for a little body. So they qualified him as other health impaired.
What's a conduct disorder?
I jump in, but it's kind of like I can't behave. Like I can't follow the rules. So if you say sit down, I'm going to be like, what? I can't sit down.
It's pretty rare for a 5-year-old to have that diagnosis, though.
Okay. I would agree.
And I would say that's probably one of the more controversial diagnoses, because you have people saying like, they're just naughty. It's not an actual disability, right? Like the line is a little blurry there.
I feel like you see it often in high school kids, where like Anna's language is kind of like, they're just not. But for a 6-year-old, that feels really heavy.
Yeah, like I think about my own 6-year-old and like he definitely doesn't have a conduct disorder, but like the times when he's not following directions are pretty high for a good kid, right? Like the learning curve there is big, especially in kindergarten. Like you said, if they haven't been to school before, or if they've never been to all day school before, that's a lot of demands being placed.
Yeah.
There are also a lot that we don't know about his conduct that is really, really not typical development and could be harming animals or things like that, get you a label quicker. Anyway.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting, right? Because these cases never give you all the details. Sometimes you just ask more questions. Like we're already stuck that this kid's got this label on him, right? We're like, no, just let the kids be kids. And, to get that diagnosis he's probably had a pretty heavy past with lots of trauma in it. So, he starts the school year out, everything's great, he's doing well, and then all these non-compliance and defiance behaviors start to happen. So he starts getting in trouble, he's being sent to the corner, he's being sent home, he's going to the principal's office, and then right around the holidays, like November, his behavior starts getting really big. Verbal outbursts, physical aggression, he's hitting, he's kicking, He's pushing other kids. He's not able to go to recess safely. He's even got some self-injurious behavior where he's like banging his own head on like the outside brick walls and things of the schools. So the school team's starting to get pretty concerned just about how to keep him safe, how to keep others safe. The school team really feels like they've had lots of communication with the family. The families are like, we want him to stay in gen ed. This is kind of his first chance at school. Like, let's give him this opportunity. And the school's like, we can't keep him safely in that classroom. So they did an FBA and a BIP, and they placed him with some access to a more self-contained setting. So he went down to that 79 to 49% LRE. So kind of that middle one, accessing some time away from peers. And then he has this big blow up, and it blows up the classroom. All the other kids are scared to come. The other families go in and complain to the admin, is kind of the theory that like he's no longer safe in this setting because of this one big blow up. And so they send an email to the parents and say, we created a safety plan and he's not allowed back into the classroom, and he's 0 to 39% in this self-contained classroom.
Okay, I have a question, a clarifying question. So there was one like big incident in class, and they sent an email to the family changing his placement.
That's what it sounds like.
And they did a safety plan on their own, not with family input.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
I wish the audience could see Anna's face right now.
I have a lot of concerns.
When do you typically see safety plans put into place?
I would say along with that behavior plan, depending on what the behavior is, right? Like if this happens, how do the adults in the school respond? And so I don't think it's uncommon to have a safety plan alongside your behavior plan.
Okay.
And a safety plan isn't necessarily like a formal document attached to an IEP. It's like, hey, here's how we're going to respond if and when this happens, getting everyone on the same page. You can also see safety plans right away, like when you see that self-injurious behavior before, if you even have a behavior plan in place, like what do we do to keep this kid and everyone safe?
Safety plan being different from emergency response plan, which is more of a formal document that goes into the IEP and would be a team discussion and requires parent consent.
What's a situation that you would put an emergency response plan in place versus?
Typically, if there's like planned usage of isolation or restraint.
Gotcha.
Is when you would have an ERP, it's an ERP. Is when you put one of those in place. So, I mean, we sometimes get those like in an emergency situation before a behavior plan is in place, but really the whole team needs to get together as soon as possible and figure out what's going to be best for the kid.
Okay.
And nowhere in here was there discussion about an ERP. So they didn't really talk about like what they were using to try to keep him safe or the other kids safe. But we can imagine a kindergarten classroom getting blown up, right? We've seen pictures on Facebook and all those places, like computers are on the ground, the kids are all out, all the desks are tipped over, kind of a really traumatic dysregulation moment for him. Sounds like his biggest one.
And I would say like the safety plan being done without parent input isn't, I mean, I think it is a concern to me, but like school's going to know the school protocols and stuff like that better than family is. Obviously, family input should be like, what do we do for him to keep him safe, but not necessarily what are we going to do for the other kids. But the changing the LRE in an email is a pretty big problem, I would say.
I think another piece that complicates this case is the safety plan was developed through the threat assessment team.
Oh.
Oh.
How's that? I waited on that one, Stefan.
Can I guess? That's an issue because the threat assessment team is not a typical part of the kid's school day?
Yeah, not part of the IEP process.
Okay.
Right. It's a separate process as gen ed around how do we keep him and others safe. So it's a completely different team.
Gotcha. I think I'm picking up this is the part as a gen ed teacher when I would hear special educators say that's an issue and I'm just going to trust you. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like maybe it's an issue.
Well, so like in my role at the ESD, I'm on a lot of threat assessment meetings and teams for kids I don't know and will never know because it's just my role and experience and background. Like I can tell people what other resources they could be accessing or things that are out there, but I don't know those kids. So like I'm looking at the situation, not the individualized student.
We're also not a part of that IEP team. And the IEP team is the only team that can make a decision about placement, which is LRE, least restrictive environment. And that's not something we can just do in an email ever. So I'm guessing that didn't go well for them, for the district.
I think this one might surprise you.
Okay.
So the parents filed under a FAPE complaint, and they said that the school district failed to involve them in the safety plan. They failed to involve them in the threat assessment outside of the IEP, and they delayed communication about the emergency placement decision. So like when they got the email, the kid was already in the other setting.
So the placement decision wasn't part of like it, maybe putting the kid on some sort of discipline that required a manifestation meeting and all of that. It was. Okay. And the parents weren't invited to that process?
They didn't have one.
Okay.
Because technically they didn't suspend the kid. The threat assessment team recommended a different placement.
The air quotes around suspension. That happens.
I feel like that's how
time.
suspension is, though. Like, it's not for real.
Yeah, and the more you use the term, technically we didn't suspend him. Technically we didn't. I feel like you start shooting some loopholes.
So they're not counting it as school removal or an exclusion because they are still serving the student, but in a different setting with less non-disabled peers.
Correct.
And this is you said it's an emergency placement. I thought an emergency placement was like until we can meet and determine what placement should be type of thing.
Yeah, the language around that emergency was a little questionable because the email was clearly, this is the placement we have decided for you. Yeah.
To put it in an email, that's pretty bold.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, like my whole approach to this would have been different. So like when I said at the beginning, I feel like this is a straightforward case. And then you kind of read through it and I was really surprised by the ALJ's findings. So what do you guys think the ALJ would say?
Well, based on what you just said, I think that they are in alignment with the district, but that sounds wrong to me. Like you can't unilaterally change placement without at least invitation to family to be a part of that conversation.
Did
Or shouldn't
though
be.
notice at the law conference this year that that judges were more lenient with process, it seemed like, when there's a safety concern. Like a safety concern will a little bit supersede perfect procedure.
Which I would say is okay if it is an emergency placement, and then we're going to meet and figure out what's actually best. Like in the immediate time frame, yes, this is a safety concern. We need to be able to meet and figure it out. Until then, we still want to continue serving him. He can come to school. It's just going to be in this placement, right? Like that makes sense to me. But to just say he doesn't get to go in gen ed anymore because of one severe incident without a team conversation, I don't understand.
Would the ALJ have had information around what the incident was? They would have had.
Like the facts of what the school had written down.
The severity of
the threat assessment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, I know it's not helpful to say like, well, we don't know exactly what this kid did. And having said that, I think it's fair to assume, I'm with Anna and Leanne. I would have said there's no way you can just email a family and say, we're changing this kid's placement to put him in like a more restrictive environment because we've unilaterally made that decision. Like if I got that email as a parent, I'd be livid. That being said, if the safety of other students is a major concern and this incident was super severe, I could see the court saying, this is what's best for the school community, what's safest for the school community. And so the schools have that power to make that decision, which still feels icky.
Yeah, but they should, right? Did they go about it the right way? But at the end of the day, we all send our kids to school and we expect the school to keep them safe.
Yeah, I think my hang up is not on the fact that placement was changed, is that they did it without having a team conversation.
And that would be me too. Like if I think of like if I have a kid at school and there's this incident happening, I think my reaction as a parent would be, yeah, that's not okay. Like it's not, but my first question for the school would be, what happened right before that? What are you doing to mitigate these incidences? There was one, again, not knowing the severity, but making some assumptions. There was one incident and now we're making this very drastic change. I would be making a lot of noise about the school's responsibility around prevention, as opposed to being reactive. And I do want the schools to be able to make that change if they need to protect the other students. Because coming at that from the other parent's point of view, I would probably also be the parent in the office saying like this kid put my kid in danger, and like that's not okay. I should be able to send my kid to school, and I shouldn't have to worry that they're safe. And so the schools do have that responsibility. It does worry me a little bit that a school could make a decision that sweeping and it would just be okay that the parent wasn't at least involved beyond just an email.
Yeah, I think another piece to add to this from the school side is, with the new discipline laws, you can't suspend a kindergartner. So what do you do when they return the next day?
The problem is they move them to the special education classroom with students that are highly impacted with disability and make that classroom unsafe. So there aren't great answers. Mm-hmm. District didn't exclude the child from education altogether, which is good. They did get a threat assessment team, which is good. They did try to formalize some safety plans and likely were doing room clears and all sorts of things that take kind of a big communication plan in order for everyone to know what to do. This must have been pretty scary for the teacher and the other students. I bet they had families calling. Was it a small school or a bigger school?
I blocked out the school district, so it will take me a moment to answer that question.
It was a medium-sized school.
The superintendent's kid. Things like that matter in a small school too.
Yeah. So I think the ALJ said, school, you did not follow procedure and made an improper decision in unilaterally placing that student into a new LRE, which you can't do. And then the ALJ turned around and said, and school, what you did was place this child in an IAES, so an interim alternative education setting. You used the wrong words.
What we need is a sound effect. Every time you people roll out a new acronym, because I've been writing them down up until now. FBA, BIP, ALJ. I know all of those. We've covered all of those. I've already forgotten, but IHOP, I think, is what you just said. What was that? Run that one back for me, please.
An interim alternative education setting. So in the WACs, a school can say there's about 4 or 5 reasons, and we can say, hey, we need 45 days to figure this out. We're going to put this child over here, and we're going to have a meeting, and we're going to revisit this paperwork, and we're going to develop a plan. And so using emergency was the wrong word, because you really can use this interim setting to develop that plan and do it correctly in partnership with the family.
Yeah, like had you said it was an IAES, I would have not freaked out. I would have been like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
It's like purgatory. I'm not sure if we keep
that was
that
a
connection
really negative spin on that, but
isn't that kind of it? Like this is this kid's temporary setting, because we don't want to put him somewhere where he doesn't belong, but we know we can't keep him where he is.
Yeah, it's the pause button.
Okay.
And it's better than a suspension of being at home for 2.5 months, which is what we used to do. So they really caught the district on their vocabulary and backed the district up.
You did the right thing the wrong way, is what they're saying.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And they said they had a preponderance of evidence that this student was not appropriately placed, that there was substantial risk to the student and others in the current setting.
Oh. So that really does point to there's a lot more to this that we just don't know.
Always.
Which, you guys caught that from the get-go. Like a 6-year-old general anxiety conduct disorder identifies other health impaired. The first thing you guys said is that's kind of rare. And then just reading between the lines, there's just a lot more going on.
I would be interested in knowing like their pre-kindergarten experience, because had they been in preschool or anything like that, having those diagnoses, I'd be surprised with that original 80 to 100% placement.
But like if this is their first time in school, then
right.
You're working with a kid the system knows nothing about. So you're just kind of figuring yourself out as you go. This might be too much of a bird walk, but Darcy, you mentioned change in disciplinary procedures in Washington State, and you can't suspend a kindergartner. When did that happen?
I'd have to go back, but I think it was a couple years ago. So K through 3, and you guys please jump in. We are going to have to link the new discipline guidance on the spreadsheet, because I don't keep it right in front of me. But I think that a couple years ago, they said, K through 3, it's never appropriate to suspend a student. Like, our system should be able to respond and retrain and teach so that a student can be successful in school. And if we're suspending them at those early ages, we're ingraining inherently that they're not going to be successful in the school setting. And so I think they kind of limited that as a tool for discipline.
I like that a lot. I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay. I just wasn't sure how long that had been around. Because I have a hard time picturing a kindergartner do anything where, suspension is appropriate. They're 5 and 6 years old,
Yeah. And this is a kid who sounds like they really need to be in school and they really need some specialized SDI. Yeah. Sending them home for 2.5 months because it makes it easier on the system doesn't help when the kid comes back either.
Hmm.
What was on the student's IEP? Was it social emotional behavior, or were there also cognitive learning kind of challenges?
He was across the board in all services.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what was I guess you said that you gave us the final ruling as the judge said, you went about this the wrong way. You called it the wrong thing.
You called it the wrong thing.
So here's what you should have said. So the district probably wasn't punished in any way, shape, or form, but what did they do for the parents?
They gave them a date where the school district and the family had to get together to talk about the new IEP and where the placement was going to be for the kid. So they gave them those 45 days to schedule that meeting and come up with a new IEP.
Okay.
So the parents got an IEP meeting.
Well, it was court-ordered parent involvement or like court-ordered parent advocacy, I guess.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway on this case is we get caught up in the language and what we say and how it goes. Schools have an obligation to make sure everyone is safe, not just the whole class, but also this individual kid. And I just keep thinking, man, what if the school had handled that differently than an email? Like, you've got a whole educational career with this family and this student. And I feel like that was like you put a little grenade down right at the beginning, right? It wasn't even the shot over the bow. Like, we're considering, it's like, bam, this is what we did. And we didn't include you in the conversation. When are you available to meet? Right? Like, it's just like, we talk all the time about communication via email and connections and relationships. And I just feel like they set themselves up to have a really hard educational career with a student that's going to need a lot of support. Thanks for tuning in to Spedsplaining. If you've got questions or thoughts about today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. Head over to our links where you can drop in your questions, join the conversation, and connect with us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode if you found it helpful. Until next time, stay curious, and Stefan will keep Spedsplaining.